Ron LeGrand.
That's me.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you for taking the time to do this, by the way.
No problem.
Brian Trippe. I'm in Birmingham, Alabama. I met you at family a few different times, but obviously I've known of you for a very long time. I got started in real estate in 2012, and you're one of those names, that everybody's kind of heard of. If you don't mind, I'd just love to I want to talk about real estate today. I was told that you just got done. You had an appointment today?
Just came back from a house I own.
Okay, so you're still actively doing real estate?
Yes, I am. In fact, I just came back from 2 houses I own, and I'm going to do a 90-minute sale on both of them, open house thing.
What 90-minute sales?
Drive them all to the house during an hour and a half we're there. They can bid on the price. They can bid on the amount of down payment they want to give me if I lease purchase them to them. And then I pick the winners after the day is over.
Wow. Yeah. Is that a strategy you've done? Is that your kind of go-to strategy?
In the past it was. I haven't had to quite a while, but slowing down here a little bit now. So got to go back to what worked.
Okay. Yeah, take me through that, Ron, if you don't mind. I mean, I want to talk about a lot of different things today, but real estate today is obviously a hot topic everybody's talking about. What you mentioned slowing down, you think that's specific to, we're here in Jacksonville, Florida, by the way. Is that specific to Jacksonville, or is that across the country? Tell me what you're kind of seeing.
The market is slowed in most of the country, except in some very hot areas. And I'm not saying it's crashing. I'm just saying the values are dropping a little. And all that really is taking away some of the crazy appreciation we've had in the last few years, and not even close to all of it. So when I renovate houses, by the time I get them sold, the price has dropped on them. And that's what's happening here. It's happened a lot of places for a lot of reasons that, I don't know all of them, but I just know what's happening in mine. Everybody I talk to, realtors are having a hard time right now in most places. It's not that they don't have the properties to deal with. It's just that I think the high interest rates have a lot to do with it, and fear of what's coming up has something to do with it, and fear of people actually getting into debt like that. So I'm just guessing. All I know is that way, and I talk to my students all over the country, and in my own projects, for example. So I got one that I'm about to put on the market for $3.25, which is what it was worth when I bought it. But there's houses, 2 or 3 around it. They're selling in the 260, 275 area, very similar to my house. So I'm going to have to adjust to the market. I'm not going to outguess it, I can tell you that. That hasn't worked for me in 43 years.
Right. 43 years of doing real estate. So I was going to ask you, how you're sitting here talking about things that you're seeing across the country. Mm-hmm. Are you doing deals across the country, or it's specific kind of to your students?
I work with students across the country, and if they want me to partner with them, yes, I do deals across the country.
Wow. And what's your go-to right now is lease options? What's your go-to right now?
I've been doing lease options for a long time. That's my go-to on a house that I buy on terms. Put a tenant buyer in there until they move or buy it. If I have to pay cash, I have to sell them for cash. I'm not going to leave the cash buried in the house. I got one of those right now, 2 of those right now. Boy, in the past, it would sell pretty quick. It's just not the case right now. And for sure, 2 of them, the area where they're in is not the problem. One of them is a little weak area, and that's been a problem to sell for cash.
Well, Ron, I think for me, the purpose of being here today is I want to kind of get to know you a little bit and kind of get to know your story. I don't know how often you talk about it. I don't know that I've heard about it too often. A lot of people just obviously know you and recognize you as.
That just says that I'm old, Brian. That's all that says.
But you're one of the guys that so many people respect.
Yeah.
Because you've been doing it for so long.
Because I've spent my life doing what I say I'm going to do, and telling the truth, not a bunch of seminar crap. I do what works, and yes, I still do it. Okay, I got a acquisitionist now, my partner, that does all the work. I do almost nothing, except I wanted to go take a look at these and verify what they needed before we do this 1-hour sale, and I will be on that. That'd be fun.
Why is that fun? Why is that still fun for you?
You got a house full of people. You're sitting there talking to them, and some of them will qualify, some of them won't. So it's just simple. If they got good money, and they want to lease it, fine. If they got good credit, sell it on cash. It's called being flexible. And when you buy them on terms, that's the way you can. Now, I paid $440 for this house. It appraised at $521, so I got plenty of room to do whichever I want. By the way, that was with nothing down and $440,000 back to the seller. And by the way, that house needs absolutely nothing. Not a rehab. Everybody's out there looking for junkers. I prefer the pretty ones. But I'll take the junkers when they come along too. We wholesale most of them today. Because right now, as we speak, I'm a little afraid of the renovate and sell for cash to qualified buyer for obvious reasons. And it takes 6 months to get through one of those things for the most part. And all you people that say it don't, go do a couple, come back and tell me I'm wrong. And usually I listen with realtors when I'm renovating them. But this house I'm thinking of right now, I've been listed with a realtor and they didn't get any offers on it at all. So I got to take matters into my own hands. And that's what you want to do if you want to survive in this business. You got to change with the market or the market's going to take you out.
43 years doing real estate and you still get excited about going to a house full of buyers.
I don't go to very many, Brian, to tell you the truth. My acquisitionist does. I go to them before I close on them. And if it's a renovation, I go to them to meet the contractor once. Then I don't see the house again. No need. I have the realtor that I listed with do the final inspection and then release the last payment to the contractor. But on pretty houses like this, there was nothing to do. It's just that I put it out there on the market. Now this is a $500,000 house. I just made up my mind. I wasn't going to accept less than a $50,000 non-refundable option deposit. Well, the market out there is just not going to bring that. We had it on there for 2 or 3 months and I would get all kinds of stupid offers, but I'd rather not put somebody in the house unless they got a minimum of 5% down. I'd rather keep it vacant. So it's my rules over these years, over 3,000 houses later. I've tried to do everything I can to avoid any traps.
Right. So you mentioned a second ago changing with the times. You've seen numerous market shifts in 43 years. What does it kind of take for someone who's in real estate? You know, I've just been in it for 13 years and I've seen a little bit. I got into it after the most recent crash. But what does it kind of take for someone to survive in real estate and to be able to change with the times? Because it seems like we learn what we know and we do it well for a while and then maybe it just doesn't start to work as well anymore. So what does it take to kind of adapt?
All right, well, first of all, like any other business, you got to learn the basics. And if you don't take time to learn the basics about real estate, you're not going to get any deals and you're walking around wondering why I'm not doing it and everybody I look at is doing it. It's because you don't have the proper education, that's why.
Tell me, what are the basics? What would you consider the basics?
You do not guarantee debt. That's a trap. That's building a house on a house of cards. It's going to crash on you. Debt means that you're obligated to a lender, and if you don't pay them, they take the house and they can kill your credit and all of that. I will not allow my students to guarantee debt. In fact, I punish them if I catch them guaranteeing debt.
To personally guarantee?
Personally guarantee debt. All of my houses that I buy have no personal guarantee on them. Okay, I either buy them with owner financing, no guarantee, or I buy them all cash. And even if it's a private lender's money, which I haven't used in a long time, nowadays I write a check. But even if it was private lender, you don't guarantee private loans if you get them from private individuals, not from loan sharks. Right. So again, you got to learn the basics. And then you got to learn how to look at a pretty property, which is different than looking at an ugly property. And it's hard to learn. I got a whole 4-day event that teaches all this stuff. And then you enhance on your education from that point. Nobody is going to get good in the first few months. In fact, it takes several years to get really good at it, but it don't take that long to make money at it, especially if you operate without using credit, going down to the bank and applying for a loan, and you're not doing this BRRRR thing you hear so much about. That BRRRR thing is a way to get in bankruptcy very quickly.
How so?
Because number one, you got to go to the bank, borrow money, and guarantee debt. You get 80% of the money, you spend it in 20 minutes. Now what you're going to do when the house needs some of the money back? And they always do. Yeah, so unless I'm going to sell it with a cash out, if I want to do that, why the heck would I want to go borrow from a bank? So if they do that, they're keeping it because BRRRR stands for buy, repair,
rent,
help me,
refinance,
buy, rehab, rent, refinance, that's the killer.
Repeat.
And then repeat, correct, yeah. 2 problems with that. Number one, I don't rent houses. I at least purchase them.
So you're against just standard rental property, just standard rentals.
Houses. Okay. I lease purchase them for two very good reasons. Number one, I get a minimum of 5% down when I put a tenant buyer in it, and I won't give a seller more than, in fact, I just told you I bought one with nothing down. It's $500,000 house. And you got a whole world out there right now with deals you can walk in and shake right and left with nothing down. We call them low equity deals. So I just take over the loans. I don't even do that. My trust that owns the house takes over their loan. No personal guarantee. Keep yourself out of harm's way. You're not smart enough to predict what's going to happen in the future. Market's going to rip you apart whenever you get that smart. And I can't tell you how many people over the years I've seen that happen to. And then the refinance part and the rent part's the two things that I object to on that formula. We don't refinance anything in our name.
And you don't, and just having rent, that's different than a lease option.
No. You get some of the benefits when you just rent. But with a lease option, I get a minimum of 5% deposit accredited toward their purchase price, refundable if they don't buy. I give them a
refundable.
I'm sorry, not refundable.
Okay.
Well, no, I meant it's credited toward their down payment. All right.
Got it.
Plus, I get more than normal rent, so I got a nice monthly cash flow. I get appreciation, which really made a dent in the market for the last 3 years or so. I got a couple of houses double in value in that 3-year period. And then you get depreciation, which a lot of people don't think about. If you think about this, let's say you got a $300 a month negative cash flow, which I try not to have. Go figure out what your depreciation is, and I promise you it's going to be more than your negative cash flow. It's not technically costing you anything. And then you get the debt pay down. That's another one people forget about. I've got a house right now that I've had for 10 years. First tenant buyer put up $50,000, walked away in 2 years. And to make the story short, that house I bought it for $351 by taking over the loan, not assuming it, taking it over. And I checked on the comps the other day during a class, and it was worth $650. And I've done nothing but collect rent and pay the rent the whole time. Spent no money on repairs on it. And the depreciation on it, as I recall, saved me about $80,000 worth of income taxes over that period of time. And I put my executive assistant in it, and she didn't give me any $50,000, but she's been paying the rent all this time. And all those benefits add up to about $650,000 that house has technically paid me in those 10 years without another dime out of my pocket.
Not to mention what it's worth now today versus what you owe.
It's worth now about $660. I paid $351 for it. Yeah. So
but you've paid that loan down, right? Or no?
I did. That debt paid down. I started at $351, and now it's about $240.
Right.
Yeah. See all those paydays. Everybody's out there shaking junkers. They don't think like that.
So your go-to is lease options, even in any market? In
any market. But remember, I only lease options when I buy on terms. I buy for cash, I'm going to cash out of it. Whether I borrow private money or not, I'm not going to leave my money buried in the property, and I'm not going to leave a lender's money buried in the property. Could.
Which means you're going to wholesale it or you're going to flip it.
Well, wholesaling is flipping.
Okay.
I don't call rehabbing flipping, but they're both flipping.
Got it.
Technically, yeah. Now on the wholesale, I just assign the contract. We don't even take title of the property most of the time. In fact, we did one a few months ago. We did 5 properties over a period of 2 months from beginning to end, assigned the contracts, and netted about $147,000 on all those 5 houses, and never bought a house. And our deposit was $10 per house. So when people come to me and say, I don't have the money to do this, well, good. Now you ain't going to spend it in the wrong places and waste it while you're trying to learn how to do the business. Right. So regardless of what business you do, you got to get educated on how to do it.
Yeah.
I used to joke. I used to have restaurants. I had 6 restaurants through over the years, and I used to say you can't learn how to operate a restaurant by eating at it. And that's true. And you can't learn it on the internet either. I can tell you that right now. Everybody's got a different opinion. Some people on the internet I've sold a few houses, and all of a sudden they're an expert. Some of them are very good at it, but it takes years to get very good at it.
Yeah.
It doesn't take years to start getting nice checks. In fact, if you look around this building, you might want to put them in this. I got people's testimonials all over the walls here and over the next door. We just continually get them. And that's, kind of one reason why I still do this. Besides, I got to have something to do. I'm semi-retired, all right? So I still like to teach. As long as I like to teach, I'll still teach it.
Yeah. But, talking about the folks that there are so many today who are coaching, educating,
Yeah.
teaching. I've done a few deals now. I'm a coach now.
Yeah.
Now I'm an educator. But you mentioned a second ago, you've got to get good at it. You've got to getting educated is one thing, but taking the reps and actually talking to the sellers and actually getting out there in the properties, that's another thing about it. How do you balance the two, the
That's part of your
education?
training. That's all part of your training and all built into my training. First of all, you can go to all the seminars in the world you want, but if you don't implement any of that information, you're just getting more frustrated because it's not working for you. Everything is so systemized today. It's been so many years trying to systemize this stuff, and even today, building AI into everything we do, which even makes it easier. Man, I wish I had all this crap when I was growing up. I actually had to work at this. And honestly, even my acquisition as partner don't work but about 10 hours a week in real estate because everything else is jobbed out with outsiders and there's not much for us to do. And that's what I try to build into my training. To get a business that will produce you way more than a living and free up your time, you found it. It's called real estate. Yeah. And also, we have one key factor that most businesses don't have. We got super low overhead and huge transaction value checks. Walmart wishes they could work on that philosophy.
Right.
All restaurants do. We don't have to make a killing by doing 200 deals a year. Right. We just got to do a few, and these big checks come in every single time. But remember, when I put lease option tenant buyers in there, I keep getting checks for years. When I wholesale a house, I get one check, pay the government more taxes, and then I got to get up and go to work again. But here I am telling you about wholesale deals that we've done. A smart investor will do it all. Take whatever comes at you and immediately drop it in the box that it goes in. And honestly, the key to that is it doesn't need rehab. If it needs rehab, it's probably an all cash offer, even though there's a lot of short-term seller financing offers that I teach, so you don't have to come up with all the money. But if it needs rehab, that's got to go. It means it's got to be cashed out by a qualified buyer. And could I keep it? Yeah. With high interest private money and not a long-term deal. I could go to the bank, get the loan, and you usually have cash flow issues. And today, we're sitting here in Florida. Insurance alone is driving people out of this state big time. They will gladly give you the house. Alan and I were talking about that back a while ago. I've got a student right now he's in Colorado, and same thing. So by the time these insurance rates went crazy, that takes the payment up to crazy, and almost all of them got an escrow account in it. And he was telling me that in Southeast Florida, people are selling $300,000 condos for $2,000 or $3,000 just to get out of them. So that's the market we're in right now, and we got to adjust. Yeah. And on that subject, incidentally, in 2008, when the big crash came, I was dead center of it. I had a bunch of commercial projects going on. I don't want to talk about that today. I don't want to get depressed here while we're doing this interview. Okay. But you can, here in Florida and all the sunshine states, the value dropped about 40%, like overnight. A lot of houses were over leveraged. People didn't know what to do with them. They were walking away from them. We got that right now. Now they're not over leveraged, but with the 7% interest rate and most of them with little or nothing down, and all of them that we run across, they've only owned about 2 years. And every one of them was listed and they didn't sell. There wasn't no place for the realtor to get paid in there. They're out there by the gazillions. Had to call on one just like that today.
So what do you do with a property like that?
It depends on the numbers. And they're all in great shape.
They're all in great shape, but they have very little equity.
It's okay. I'm not trying to cash out of this one right now. The equity is not near as important as is the payment way out of whack. Am I going to have to take a big negative? And frankly, if you structure your system right, that's okay. You're still going to get $10,000, $15,000 down because you're going to raise the price on a lease option anyway. So I'm not going to get rich on the down payments, but I get all those other goodies you're talking about. We're talking about like brand new houses here. And most of them have VA loans on them, most of them.
But you're keeping the loan in place.
Oh, God, yes. When I buy a pretty house, I take over the debt, or if it's free and clear, the seller finances me or I don't buy it.
This is a subject to transaction.
I buy them on a wrap.
Okay.
I don't like subject to, and I will predict to you within a couple, 3 years, it won't exist anymore because it's going to be outlawed. I just see it coming. I've been at this for a long time. See, when you buy a house subject to, the seller's got no way to take it back if you don't pay, because you don't owe them anything. They can't foreclose on it. In addition to that, they go try to get another loan. This debt's going to go against their debt ratio, and they're not going to qualify. So that's the choice they make to get rid of it. And these people don't care. They beg you to come take the house off their hand. They don't want any money. Just please take the house off my hand. Because they got very little, they got to go. They got to do something else.
But with a wrap, the mortgage stays in place as well, correct?
It does, but I'll wrap that mortgage.
Right.
I'm not going to take them subject to.
Right. You're not, but that mortgage is still in place for that seller who is now.
Ryan, anytime I buy a pretty house in nice subdivisions, the mortgage always stays in place. Terms means we don't pay off the loan. We take over their debt without risk.
Which means you don't take title.
No, I take title. I take title on a wraparound mortgage.
Okay, you got to explain this to me because I don't know this. I don't know how to do this without making it a sub two, without taking over the.
Yeah, I know it's all throughout the country, but I've been around a long time, and
that's why we're here.
When you start taking advantage of that, which is exactly what we're doing, and you know as well as I do, nobody's telling them their risk. No investor is going to tell them their risk because they probably would back out. Oh well, some of them wouldn't. It's dangerous to the seller. It ain't dangerous to me. I'd rather buy a subject to. You know, it's quicker and a little less closing costs, but it's dangerous to them. So I'm not going to go down that road and have some district attorney contact me one day and, you know, I've done 52 houses that way and create a big mess. A lot of people forget about what's going to happen tomorrow. Yeah, well, the feds don't. and you have to do it quite a while before they'll even catch up to you. And it's not violating any law. It's not violating any law. But, you know, some attorneys come by and say, sue you because you didn't fully disclose. Well, we fully disclosed. We closed with an attorney and they signed a piece of paper, but that doesn't mean they understood it. Okay. And they didn't even think about the risk. They're just thinking about getting out of the property and getting the payment off their back. And to make it even worse, I don't make a payment till the third month after I bought the house. Seller makes the next two most of the time. I learned that a long time ago. I don't want a payment right on my back.
Right. Especially if you're not, if you're putting money up to try to catch something.
And no house is easier to sell than a lease purchase house. There it is. That's the sign.
No bank qualifying.
That's the big valuable sign. So complicated. You have to put out, you know, try this 10 or 12 times. No, you don't. You put that out. That's all you get. And in your ad, you put the keywords, no bank qualifying, credit not important, things like that.
Ron, help me understand. I want to get back to help me understand the difference between a sub 2 and a wrap as far as you're taking over, you're taking title with a wrap.
Subject to, my entity is taking title in a land trust.
Correct.
Okay. On a wraparound mortgage, my entity's taking title, but the trust is signing a note mortgage back to the seller for the amount that I bought it for, unless they get a little bit more. And of course, if you get a little bit more, that just raises the amount of the wrap, that's all. And anytime I buy a property on a wrap like this one, I owe a seller $105,000 5 years from now. Okay, they're not getting a dime worth of interest on that, and they're not getting any payment on that because I'm just making their underlying payment. So that was their deal.
Gotcha.
And they were happy to do it. They had to get to Vegas. Husband was in ill health. By the way, they had a VA loan, and they already bought a house on VA in Vegas, in case you're thinking you can only get one loan with VA.
Right. So that's a great strategy. I like that strategy. How do people, I guess, how do you stay protected on something like that?
First one is no guaranteed debt.
Like what's no guaranteed debt? What's going to happen in 5 years?
So there's a balloon due. So if I haven't cashed them out, what do I do in 5 years? You know, very clearly. I haven't paid the seller off in 5 years. What's the only two options the seller has?
He's got to redo the loan with you, or he can't
redo the loan and don't own the house. He can extend my loans. That's what you mean.
That's what I meant. Yeah.
Or he can take the house back, right? Well, if that's what they want to do, I'd gladly deed it to them. They'll foreclose on it. I've already made thousands and thousands of dollars on it. Now, what do you think the chances are the seller wants the house back in 5 years?
Right.
Okay. Now, so you're not at risk. There ain't a darn thing they can do to it if you don't pay off that balloon, as long as you don't guarantee the debt.
Right.
So I use land trust to take title. Nobody even knows I'm the owner, because actually I'm not. My LLC is. I teach people how to protect themselves against predators, and that lesson comes right along with learning how to make money. You better learn how to protect it pretty
That's
quick
right.
before you get yourself in a jam.
That's right. Ron, take me back. This is what I really want to talk about the most. Take me back 43 years. All right, 43 years ago.
I don't want to think about that.
43 years ago. Tell me how does, because today you can go on the internet and everybody's an expert and you can learn anything and everything. 43 years ago, none of that existed. How do you even get started in real estate 43 years ago?
All right. I was working in a service station that I was managing.
And how old are you at this time?
35.
Okay.
Okay. And I could hardly make a living. I could hardly stay above water, working my butt off the whole week. And I was like kind of looking, and I saw this ad that said, "Come learn how to buy real estate with no money or credit." I knew that was a scam for sure, but I went down and checked it out. 2-hour speech by Carlton Sheets put me into a 2-day seminar by Robert Allen on how to buy houses with nothing down. And when I got out of that, I didn't understand most of it, but I understand this wholesaling thing. Okay, my first deal got me $3,000 within 3 weeks of getting out of that class. It was so easy. I used a realtor. I put it under. I don't even remember the numbers, but I flipped it and made $3,000. Never had to buy it, and that got me on fire. Went along after that. I called my boss and said, "I'm upping my income, up yours," and haven't had a job since. Besides, I'd make a terrible employee. So here's the cool part about this story, which applies to everybody watching right now. I used to love watching Dallas on TV. J.R. Ewing was my hero. I couldn't wait till Friday night. I had to miss J.R. to go to this meeting. I almost talked myself out of it. How many times have you looked back and said, I said to myself, what if I'd have missed that meeting? I don't know what I'd be doing today. Because I didn't have a vehicle to get rich. And people sometimes work their ass off and they got the wrong vehicle and hanging their ladder against the wrong corporate wall. So I came out, I got to work and started doing deals. My income doubled and tripled real quick, but I was wholesaling everything. I'm making better money than I was making and not working as hard at that service station. I was the mechanic even. In this hot Florida sun, I was a mechanic working on those hot engines. I don't know how many windows I've washed in my life. That's what we used to do back then. How many times I've checked people's oil. So, it was a hard way to make a living, honestly. And I was responsible for the whole thing. So, just wasn't getting anywhere. So one day, I came home from work. I was all greasy. My hands were burnt. I was in a bad mood. And my wife, Beverly, as of this year, been married 60 years.
It's incredible. Congratulations.
She told me the washing machine is broke again and asked me if I'd buy her a new one. I blew up. I said, I can't buy you a washing machine. We got to go to the grocery store 2 or 3 times a year a week just to buy groceries. Couldn't buy them all at once. And I went to bed mad. She went to bed mad. I couldn't sleep that night. And I came out the next morning and I said to myself, this crap has got to stop. I ain't doing this the rest of my life. It's one of them turning points. It's one of them decisions you make based on something happens in your life that you didn't expect to make at that time, like going to that seminar. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And so I went to work, and by the way, I got her a washing machine. I traded some gas for a washing machine. But that's when I started looking, right then and there. I just didn't know what the hell I was going to do, but I didn't want to do that anymore. I'm still a mechanic to this day, but you ain't going to catch me under the hood of a car.
Ron, you were 35-ish at that point. So you had a pretty full adult life up until that point. Was it just you were working in a service station that whole time, and you just
pretty much right out of high school?
You just had it. What do you think took you so long to kind of draw that line in the sand? Was it the opportunity that was in front of you?
It was the thing that happened that day. It was a turning point, as they call it, that made me, in other words, I got down so low, I only had one way to go. I didn't want to do this anymore. I hated it. And not to mention, it wasn't great for my health. I was working 12 hours a day most days. Sometimes I had to be the one to open the station at 6 a.m. And, when I'm doing that, that's all normal. I didn't know how to get out of it.
But not only is it just normal, at that time, there probably weren't very many people that you may have known.
Nowhere near as many as there is
Just
today.
business owners, and I control my time, and
Yeah.
it's you see it a lot.
Yeah.
Even if it's fake, you still see it a lot online today. So people kind of growing up in it today think that it is, the number one thing that the kids say that they want to be when they grow up is, you know what it is? It's a YouTuber. That's the number one thing that people want to be when they grow up.
I could make a case for that.
Right.
Okay.
No, but I'm just saying that none of that existed. Like that
No.
entrepreneurship really wasn't as prevalent, I don't think, then.
Al Gore hadn't invented the internet
Right.
yet. So bought my first computer in '85. It was a little Apple Macintosh, $3,000. But we thought that was a miracle. What a miracle that was. We didn't have to use paper for everything.
Right.
Anyway, I just, for the first 7 years in business, in 2 years, I was a millionaire on paper, with no cash flow. 7 years later, after that, I started figuring out a way to get out of all this crap. I was buying all the low-end stuff in the low-end areas of town, which also comes with all the problems people have in real estate. Bought a ton of that stuff, and 7 years later, I got rid of most of it. And then I started getting more educated on how to get the money out of real estate without all that grief and time-sucking crap you have to do. I worked by myself for 2 years till I hired my first secretary. Her name was Vicky, my daughter, who was 16 years old. I knew I could work her cheap at that age. And a little while after that, I got my first secretary, and I started learning over the years. In fact, I got a book on it called The Less I Do, The More I Make. I don't know what delegating was. Today, I'm an expert at delegating, and I really don't want to do anything. I'd rather delegate all of it, and most of it I do. I don't delegate some of my teaching today because I got to have something to do, but I can. I can. So when you don't have much to do and you got the income coming in and everybody else is creating revenue for you, you have a chance to enjoy life and not be a slave to anybody or anything.
Was there a point or was there a moment after you had already done your first few deals, was there a moment where you maybe hit a wall or you thought about quitting? Was there ever like that kind of moment in real estate for you?
Every other week, give or take, especially when these low-end tenants started whining and belly aching about problems they could solve for themselves. So, today, I don't do any repairs for any tenant buyer. That's part of their lease option. They do them all.
That's a lesson you would learn. You didn't want to be a landlord,
God.
a traditional landlord anymore.
One time I had over 200 tenants, man.
Yeah.
Imagine what your life was like when you had 200 tenants, and you're the one taking care of all of them. Yeah, no way. So I figured out real quick, delegate everything. And by the way, y'all listen to this. There is not one damn thing you do in your business that you can't delegate. I know you want to argue about that. No, yes, you can. I don't care what business you've got, it can be delegated. And frankly, if it can't be, how do you ever intend to sell your business? Something to think about. Delegate everything so you're easily replaceable.
For those who may have just listened to you say that, it takes money to delegate things.
Why?
Okay? So,
well, sure, you got to pay somebody pennies for their services, but you're not going to delegate the stuff that's making you dollars. In fact, if you don't delegate them, you're never going to make as much as if you do delegate them. So the cost of delegating is insignificant. Like we got virtual assistants, for example, that call sellers for our students, and their full cost is $25 an hour. Think about all they can do. They do almost everything that an entrepreneur does for $25 an hour. It replaces a full-time person, and they're calling the sellers to get the private property information sheets filled out. And if they don't do that, you got no business. So somebody takes care of those extremely important things. I mean, we even got VAs now that make cold calls. You send them a list, and we got the system to pull it from, and they cold call them. I mean, like hundreds at a time, and generate leads that way. A lot of investors are doing that nowadays. They're all jobbing it out through services like ours, and it produces pretty well, actually.
But that wasn't the case when you were getting going.
Oh God, no. I didn't even know how to spell delegate.
So
I was a man. I had to do it all myself.
Right.
Nobody could replace me.
Of course.
Yeah. And, I'm also a man. The last thing I'm going to do is follow instructions. Men don't do that.
Of course.
No.
Oh, that's true.
If it's working perfectly, it's got to be fixed. Right, guys? You know who you are.
That's right. We got to tinker, right?
Yeah.
Constantly.
Yeah.
Did you ever face that moment though, where you felt like you were going to quit, or you felt like real estate, you know what, I've had it with this thing?
I never faced that moment, Brian, because actually I was in too deep. I had all these tenants and so forth. They told me in the seminar, put tenants in the house and wait and you'll be rich. They forgot to tell me what's going to happen along the way.
Right.
Somebody's got to manage this stuff.
Right.
All right. So over time I learned that. It took me a long time to do when I teach people today, they start with delegation. They don't wait 3 or 4 years to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
They start with systems. Everything's done for them. And I mean everything is done for them except go knock on that door and get that contract.
Right.
Even calling the sellers is done for them.
Do you remember the first time you ever spoke, like in front of people? And
I do. It was in 1987 at a Mark O. Harrelson convention down in Orlando. I had a stack of courses like that, which are nothing more than taping a all-day seminar, okay, and book with it. And I started selling those. I think price was $7.97 at that time, and I did
$7 and
no.
Oh, okay.
700. There were
I
five.
knew it was older. I
Yeah.
just want to make sure.
I did okay. You know, I think back on that. I mean, it was a lousy speech looking back, but they bought. I don't know why. So that was the beginning, and then I kept on speaking. And then in 1991, I started doing boot camps. Been doing them ever since. Do 11 a year now. That's the basic training. And a couple of them are virtual, a couple of them we're doing most of them right here in Florida, right here where we're sitting. And I have to stay on the cutting edge because I'm teaching, and I'm not going to teach people crap. I just ain't going to do it. I'd rather not teach at all. So I teach what works. Works for me, and I know from all the testimonials that we got, works not only all over the United States, but in Canada as well, because I've done some events up there. Biggest boot camp I ever had was in Calgary. In 2008, 460 people in one room. It was a sea of people. Anyway, today I do some coaching for commercial students. We have a mastermind group for commercial students and teach, and I have some classic cars that I buy and resell, and then we do the real estate business. So, that's all.
When you showed up to speak for that first time,
Yeah.
you said you had a stack full of materials already.
5 of them, I think. Five in a plastic case, cassette tapes.
So what got you to that? Like, take me back to where you first became
I got
guru. Like, how did that even start?
I joined my local REIA group right out of the seminar.
Right.
A year later, I was president because nobody else would run. I was president for 8 years.
What made you want to do that?
Well, come on, man. I like to teach. Everybody loves to teach. And I was doing deals. And then every time we'd have a meeting, I'd tell about my deals, and then they'd crowd around. They want to know how I did all of that. That's how I started creating courses. It took me 7 years to create my first one. And then...
So you were the guy that you just talked about a second ago that's been doing real estate for a year or not for very long, and you're already teaching people.
Yeah, but by that time, I had over $2 million in equity.
Yeah.
But that was 7 years.
Yeah.
No, 5 years.
Yeah.
All right. Boy, have I learned a lot since.
Yes.
So I keep learning because the students make me keep learning, and sometimes they come back and teach me stuff that they've learned.
Absolutely.
Staying on the cutting edge.
Absolutely.
I'm not selling stuff that happened 10 years ago.
What made you want to do that, though? Like, what made you want to kind of not even transition, because you're obviously still doing it, you did it the whole time, but to really go from I'm hustling, I'm doing real estate, this is making me a lot of money, to now I'm going to start teaching.
Because I freed up my time, and I want to teach. And then I started out in my REIA. I did a seminar one day for free. Room was filled up. So I said, this is pretty cool. I wonder if I could get money for this. So next month, I started charging money for them. The room was only half full. And I just teach what I already knew is all. And then that led to me actually creating courses, so I don't have to answer the same questions 100 times a month. And then started creating more, now combined it all into one complete cohesive system that comes with home study as well as live training. And there is nothing better than live training, and no, AI is not going to replace live training. And you better be careful about what you implement, that you learn on AI. We use AI right now. But you'd never get with AI what you're going to get out of a live training, sitting in the room with other people and your teachers that are qualified to teach.
Right.
That's the fastest way to get the learning part down.
Yeah. No, I believe that
And
for sure.
we get, before they leave, they have everything they need to implement.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have to go home and find this person and that person and that person and try to put together a package, because most of them won't hang with it that long.
Yeah. No, it's good. So you spoke in Orlando, and then you became one of those guys who started just traveling all over the country to speak. And I'm sure you've come through Birmingham at some point,
Yes.
probably numerous times.
Yes.
But was that just the natural progression of things, or is that something you really wanted to do?
First, I started speaking for people that had their own events.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started creating my own events. My first boot camp was in Dayton, Ohio in 1991.
Okay.
And then we just kept on doing it.
Why Dayton? How did that come about?
I don't remember why Dayton. Properties are really cheap there. I don't know why Dayton. I can't remember why we picked it. Next one was in LA. So, by the way, that first boot camp, I had 9 people in it.
You gotta start somewhere, right?
Yeah, 9 people. Went to LA and I got 14 there.
Did that didn't deter you at all?
Well, back then I didn't even know, what you're supposed to do with this. Back then we were going on a bus and going out and looking at ugly houses.
Oh.
And I've done that right up to 20. When COVID came, we haven't done it since.
Mm. Yeah.
Don't need to. I teamed up with my friend Jay Connor, who was one of my students, turned teacher, multi-millionaire.
Jay Connor was one of your students.
He's one of my children.
Wow.
He came to my boot camp trying to figure out where he's going to get money, since his line of credit was cut off at the bank. And he heard that I did private lending. He learned that, and I just turned it all over to him. He's created a whole business around private lending. Called me one day and he said, about 2 years in, he says, "Ron, systems are in place, making money, but I'm bored. What's next?" And I said, "What do you do, Jay?" And he told me, "Well, I'm very good at raising private money." So I helped him put together that. Frankly, gave him my course to go out and duplicate, and he's been doing it ever since. Does a hell of a job of it too. And then he's turned into a great speaker. Mm-hmm. Very good speaker nowadays. You should have heard him speak the first time I did.
I've heard Jay speak before.
Yeah, he's become one of my best friends.
So that you probably have a lot of folks like that have come through your program. Of the
industry.
Really?
Probably 2/3 of the industry, and then now they're out there spreading it. Spreads like cockroaches.
Yeah, it's the Ron LeGrand family coaching tree, kind of.
Yeah. Wow.
It's got to make you proud, right?
Yeah, it makes me very proud. Makes me very proud.
So you're still doing deals. You've got this great facility here. I walked around a little bit out there and saw the testimonials that you've got kind of framed, and just one after another after another after another.
Go see the other building.
And there's another building. I guess there's a few buildings around here that are yours.
All 3 of them, but that one's our main office is over there.
Gotcha. Just as you kind of maybe look back in retrospect, just all the people's lives that you've impacted over the years. I mean, just what is that something that still drives you, or just maybe think about that and comment on that?
I can't get enough of these letters. I can't get enough of these success stories. In fact, when you walk out of that door, you look up on the wall and there's a big poster from one of my students in California. He just told me, he came to both of my boot camps, came to the commercial, and when he went out, he says, "Now I am over $100 million of real estate that I own." From a boot camp. My secretary's fiance came to the commercial boot camp in the past, and I still do them, by the way. And he and I partnered on one project, and then 2008 came and wiped it all out. So he went out and stayed in the business by working for somebody, and about, I don't know, maybe 3 years ago now, he bought an ugly old big box store that had been closed in Massachusetts, turned it into a life storage, into a self-storage facility. Got a partner to put up the money and a partner to borrow the money. Mm-hmm. And last time I heard, before they sold it, they had about $6.5 million in it. Sold it for $19 million. Came in 2 years. Became a multi-millionaire in cash. which is going to change his life forever, and that of his heirs,
Mm-hmm.
because of one deal.
Mm-hmm.
One deal that he didn't borrow money or put up the money to do. Well, it was a deal worth doing, and he got a partner pretty easily on it.
Mm-hmm.
Not without a lot of grief along the way. He did a very nice job of building it, which he did from here, and the building was in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
So, just one deal.
Yeah.
And I always tell everybody, you got to get that first deal, because you're not going to get the second one until you get the first one. You got to focus on the two most important things you need to conquer before you get that one. Number one is generating leads.
Mm-hmm.
We got a system that'll do that for them now. Number two is mastering the closing call. In other words, learn how to read my simple scripts that have been proven so much all around the country. And I teach people, you answer questions with questions, and you ask questions, you answer those questions with questions. Don't ever tell them what you'll do. Don't ever make them an offer. Ask them questions where they're making you an offer. And you'll be surprised how that changes your success ratio. And that's inside and outside of real estate. For example, what's the least you could take for the house? Is that the best you can do? We usually buy with nothing down, okay? You'll be shocked at how that one sentence gets a lot of people to say, okay. Now,
We usually buy it with nothing down, okay?
Yeah. You say it like you mean it. When I talk about all these low equity people, I don't even have to ask them that. They tell us right up front, we'll sell it for what we owe. When I just told you about the $521 house, $21,000 house, she got $440 on a wrap, and it was worth $521, and then I gave her a penny. You know what? She didn't ask for a penny. She needed to get out, go to Vegas. I gave her what she wanted. And I'm paying her the same amount that she is paying on her underlying loan, and I'm paying it directly to the bank.
Ron, almost every question I ask you, you have this incredible ability to kind of answer the question and then kind of sum it up with, we've got all these amazing resources that are going to help you get. How did you become so good at, for lack of a better word, sales or at selling? Not just what you guys have to offer, but even when you're talking to real estate, when you're talking about real estate itself, when you're talking to sellers, you have something to sell. How'd you get so good at that?
By a lot of years, and studying people that were good at that. And I'm telling you, that's the most important thing I learned in all my time. Shut up, ask questions, answer questions with questions. I publish my sales price when I'm selling. I do not publish the down. I do not publish the monthly. I let them tell me what they can pay. That's how come I get minimum 5% down on when I sell. And I'm with sellers. They tell me, I ask them, what's the least they'll take? We usually buy with nothing down, okay? And even if they come back and say, no, I got a down payment, I'm going to say, well, you do. What's the least you could take down? And they give me an answer. I'm going to say, well, you're heading in the right direction, but we're not quite there. Remember, I usually buy them with nothing down. How close to nothing can you get? Now, they ain't all going to cooperate, but I tell you, if you ask them the right questions the right way, you'd be shocked how many will. People tend to forget all the reasons why people want to sell their house. Sometimes they don't have any choice. Now, on the other side of that, most of them won't cooperate. So you're dealing with the minimum, not the maximum, which you do in every single business on the planet. You get enough to make it worth handling, that's for sure. By the way, my third question is, most of them have an underlying loan. I don't ask them, how much could you take per month? That's dumb. Now they might think I'll pay them more than an underlying payment. So I've learned to ask them, well, okay, I assume you're okay if I make your payment till you're paid off in the future? That's a question, isn't it? Guess what most of them say? Almost all of them say, yeah. Just like the gal I was telling you about. Her payment on her loan is the same payment I'm making on a loan, $100,000 more than she owes. So I'm paying no interest and no payments on $100,000 for 5 years.
Shutting up.
Should be illegal, shouldn't it, Brian?
No, I think it's great. So shutting up and asking the right questions.
Correct. And so knowing how to counter anything they say. There's nothing new. They all say the same things over and over and over again, and nobody has more than a couple, 3 things that they want to talk about. They're not really objections. They're just questions. And the last one is, if it's free and clear, I ask them, what is the least you could take per month? And the same thing. What's the least you could take? And we work them on down like that. And then I teach all of the answers that you need to memorize, short form, and then you get the scripts, and even the script to go make an appointment at the house. You know, you wouldn't think you'd need a script for that, but you do. And there's 2 questions on there. Are you the only owner of the house? Because if I can go and they're both there, I better do that, because I need both of them. Both of them sign a contract and make sure both of them understand. And sometimes I have to go with only one and work out how we're going to get the contract signed by the other one. The last question is, this one took me at least 15 years to learn. Question is, John, if I come out to your house today, are you ready to sell your house, get some paperwork done while I'm there? Question. And if they say no, I'll say, John, then why would I want to come look at your house? Let me know when you want to sell. Then I put them in the follow-up system. It's all done automatically.
Right. What was your follow-up system 40 years ago?
Believe it or not, my first planner was one of those small pads in my back pocket. And you know who taught me to use a planner? Marco Harrelson's crew. In 1983, and I've had one ever since. And if I relied on my memory, I wouldn't have a business.
Right.
Wouldn't have a business. So guys, you guys can learn how to operate without having a memory, which is the way you better learn, or you're going to have problems, especially the older you get. Yeah, I don't have to remember anything. I time activate it. I put it in my daily planner, whether it be on phone or off the phone. Pops up when I'm supposed to do it, so I can't forget it.
Right.
Set it and forget it.
So of all the people that come through here, your boot camps, wherever you teach, online or in person, there is going to be a percentage of people who are going to leave and never do anything with.
That's the largest percentage, Brian.
Okay.
Always has been, always will be. Because I can get all I can do for them, but they got to instigate it. They got to plug into the systems, and then they got to handle the lead after they get it from my VAs through with it. It is really that simple. But, you know, people tend to make up all kind of reasons why it's probably not their fault, but they're not getting anywhere.
Well, Ron, what I was going to ask you is, how do you get that person? What can you or we do as coaches, as influencers, as teachers? How can we get that person to take action? What can we do?
The biggest thing they need to do is get a mentor. We got mentors that help people. We got group coaching and one-on-one coaching, and some before and after they get out of the boot camp, and they go through step by step. And it's not that complicated. Generate leads, send them to the VA, call them and ask them the 3 big questions I just went over with you, price, down, terms. Then see if you want to make an appointment. Done. And I can tell you, you spend an hour a week making calls and you got about 10, 15 leads that you've talked to in an hour, because this script's not that long. And then the script asks them clearly, do you have to have all your cash when you close, or can you have to have all your cash before you close, or do you have to, or can we talk about creating or some other options and where you get much more money? That's right in the script the VA asks. Right. And of course, that's top of the script when we call them on the phone to verify it. And now when they say no, it doesn't matter. We call them anyway, because no don't mean no. No means keep bugging me till I say stop. And the ones that say yes, they don't really understand what they said yes to either. But I'll take them over the nose. So we call us, the investors, call all the leads. In my case, it's my buddy Adel's doing it. I don't have to call any leads. And that's after they come from the VA. And then on some of them, a few of them, we make appointments. It only takes 2 or 3 appointments to get at least one house a month. And frankly, that's all most people can handle at a time anyway.
Ron, what if I'm introverted? I can't get on. I don't want to get on the phone.
We call you thinker brain. Thinker brain's a person that has to have all the facts, make a decision. They talk slow, they think slow, want every I dotted, every T crossed, want all the facts before they can do anything. They usually don't run companies. People who run the companies are what we call people like me. They're just the opposite. Reptile brains. Move fast, talk fast, think fast. Don't have to have every fact before they can make a decision. They make them quickly. Sometimes they're wrong, but at least they make them, because more times they're right. 2 different personalities. And then of course there's the whole middle, our mammal brains. We call them sheeple. They believe everything they see on TV, everything they hear, and they're impulse shoppers. And a lot of them need other people to do the thinking for them. So we get them from all of them, but I'm just saying, when I'm talking to a thinker brain and I know it, I better slow down or I'm going to lose them. Because people that are thinker brains can't listen as fast as you can talk.
So, but those people, obviously they exist.
Yeah.
They can't, they feel like they have something that's holding them back to be able to make a phone call or to talk to a seller. How do you get that person? You already said that they're not going to be running a company. They're not a CEO. They're not going to be running a company.
Aren't many.
So what does that person do? How's that person?
Well, he gets trained how to overcome that. Like I just said, thinker brain needs to speed up. Reptile brain needs to slow down, and you'll recognize what they are very quickly just by the way they talk. Because it's not their fault. I mean, I think it's the chemical makeup in the brain. I don't know what causes it, but I'm not saying they're ever going to fix it, but they can work on speeding things up, especially when I teach them how to buy real estate with absolutely no risk.
Right.
Take the risk out of it, and they got anything to be afraid of.
Right.
And that takes a while just to get them to get that internalized. You want to know the truth. Because a long time ago, we operate without risk, and I teach my people to operate without risk. And frankly, that's the only way I want anybody to get in this business. Right. When you start taking big risks, things are going to go wrong. Market's going to change. A lot of things can happen, like it did in 08.
Which you don't want to talk about.
No, I'm just kidding. Lehman Brothers went down. It totally changed the world of money around the world. Literally, houses down here where I live dropped about 40% in value within a month, and all across the southern states and most of the northern states. And money dried up. I don't care if you had credit lines or not, they wouldn't give you the money.
Yep.
And it stopped everything commercial. Everything. I mean, building anything came to a screeching halt. Building houses. I got 5 subdivisions that I developed, and I couldn't get them through. They wouldn't even give me the money in my own credit line. So, I lost a lot of property back there, back then, and wound up giving it back, or some of them they even foreclosed on. But, it's a lesson I learned. Not guaranteeing debt. There ain't no property worth me guaranteeing debt.
Which means you are not dealing with banks.
Nope.
Which means you're not, except they're taking over payments, which already has a loan.
I am making them payment.
You're making the payment. Yeah.
I ain't talking to them.
Right.
There's nothing to negotiate.
Right. Banks have a problem. We talked about wraps earlier. Banks don't have a problem with wraps. You haven't had a bank.
I don't know if they ever find out about it. I don't tell them, and I don't need their permission.
But you've never had a problem in 43 years.
Believe me when I tell you, the last thing a bank wants to do is foreclose on a property somebody's willing to make a payment on. It's like them wanting COVID. They can't have too many of them. The government's going to step in and either shut them down or force them to sell. I mean, they don't have a choice. So they're going to do everything they can not to take the property back. And I experienced that in commercial. They come up with all kinds of plans I never even knew banks could do. But every one of them called for me to send them more money. And I tried that for about a year. You wouldn't believe some of the payments I had. I had 2 properties with $42,000 payment on each one every month. And altogether, I had 21 properties in 9 states all at the same time. All developing, though.
Right.
The mistake I made was I should have been developing to rent. I was developing them to sell.
So you had no cash flow coming in. You had
I had
everything
no cash flow.
Everything was going out.
Everything was going out.
Yeah.
Kind of like renovating houses, ain't it?
That's right. It's a bigger scale.
That's
The
right.
dollars are bigger.
Right.
Ron, what about that person who just says, I can't afford it.
Can't afford what?
I can't afford to come to your boot camp.
I'm gonna fix that right now, because I just got guys, go to this link, ronlegrand.com/Brian. That's BRIAN, not YAN. Ron LeGrand, spell it right. LEGRAND.com/Brian. And I'm going to give you my book for one thing. In fact, I think I got one of those here. I got 3 of them actually. You're going to get this book and some other goodies. Go in there and find out. They got a pretty good package there. That I don't know if it's free. I think it might be $27. I don't know. To me, that's free. I don't know. By the time you get all of that, this right here is a seminar on a book. Literally, this is what I do step by step right here. You can get that one on Amazon too. How to be a quick turn real estate entrepreneur in any economy, but they want money. All right, I'll give it to you for free. And there's a bunch of other stuff on there as well. If you want to get started and you want to learn what I do, that's the cheapest way to do it. And then you go from there. Everybody's got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
I started with that seminar. Actually, come to think about it, I read several real estate books prior to that.
Why did you do that?
Because I was looking for a way out. I didn't know how to spell real estate. So I was looking for a way out. And then about that time, that ad hit me. I was convinced.
You were looking for it.
I was looking for something different, correct. And I don't, it's hard for you to find something different if you're not looking for it. And I didn't know what it was. I honestly didn't know what it was.
Were there a lot of real estate books back then? Where were you getting real estate books? You were buying them? You were going to the library? Or?
In the stores, yeah. There were plenty of them in there. Everybody had their own technique and so forth.
You weren't putting action to any of them at that point, though?
No. I was like most other people out there. I wouldn't take the next step and go learn from the people who know what they're talking about, how to do this business and do it correctly. And, I'm kind of proud to say there ain't nobody knows more about this crap than I do because they ain't lived long enough.
The thing I get most, I guess, that I'm most afraid of for folks who might be watching this, especially folks who are kind of newer, is you're going to go to ronlegrand.com/Brian right now. You're going to get these free resources and they're going to show up at your house and you're not going to do anything with it.
They might be $27.
Okay. So even if it's $27, it's like you said, it's basically free. Yeah. But for someone who's been doing this long, who has obviously stayed with the times, you've implemented VAs, you implemented AI, you literally just got back from an appointment. You're still doing real estate.
Yeah.
And for someone to get resources from someone who's been just a legend, someone who's been doing as long as you have, is a no-brainer. But my fear is the person who gets that, it's going to show up and they're going to have it and they're not going to do anything with it. How do we get them to take action? Does their back have to be up against the wall like yours was?
Quite often.
Like mine was?
Yep. Everybody has to have that point where they got to make a decision, continue or don't. And the answer to your question, honestly, is mentoring. You got to have somebody to hold your hand. Our mentors you talk to, and we got all these other conference calls and all this stuff you can take at your own leisure. But again, first thing you got to do is start generating leads. But then again, I don't want you to spend any money on that until you learn how to handle that call to the seller by reading my scripts, which are very, very short. Yeah. So it's one step at a time. Yeah. So when you leave my Quick Start Real Estate School, all those steps are in place for you if you say yes. And of course, some people now just don't have any money, period. So I didn't either. I had to start where I could start. So I went out and did what I could do to get that first check in that first 3 months. Yep. And the truth is, you don't use money in my world, so you don't need money. Now you're going to need some. You might want to spend some money on your marketing. For example, our Dreams Pro system pulls kick butt lists for you with 17 different criteria that you can screen your sellers by, and they do the mailing for you as well. Okay, that means you got to spend a little money on postcards. But small money compared to running big old lists and getting 1 or 2 calls from 1,000 names or something like that. So, I wish I had that when I was coming up. I really do. And it even estimates repairs for you. I mean, look, the technology today makes it real easy. Yeah. But you're right. You have to take step one. Yeah. You have to get out there and make something happen and do away with all the people in your life that are telling you this don't work, this is illegal, it won't work here. Right. By the way, they're all broke. Broke people can't help you get rich. Quit listening to them. And some of them have your last name. Sorry.
Truth.
Yeah.
I did my first deal with basically no money. $10,000, first wholesale deal. Did that in 2012, and it completely changed the way I thought.
Yeah.
About money, about real estate. Hey, I can do this.
You got a $12,000 check?
Got a $10,000 check. $10,000 even. It was an assignment. I got literally a $10,000 check, and it was I couldn't believe it.
It's what most people
do when they
come in because it's so simple. I mean, a moron could do a wholesale deal.
It took me 45 days after I learned what it was to get the check.
It took me 3 months to get my first check. Yeah. Now, remember, it was 1982. $3,000 to me in 1982 was a lot of money.
It was like 10 grand for me.
Yeah, but I carried it right around my front pocket for a month. I wouldn't turn loose of it. Of course, it was already spent. I just didn't want to turn loose of it. I don't remember making anyway, $3,000 in one lump before I got that check. And besides, I just hated the thought of going back and doing what I was doing.
Yes.
I wasn't going to do it. So
Yes.
I knew if I quit it, I could always go out and get a job.
Right.
But I don't advise anybody to quit it, their job, until they got income coming in real estate, and then you can make that decision. In fact, you can continue working full time and still make a ton of money in real estate because it doesn't require much of your time. It's a part-time business with a full-time income. And I know that's a little hard for people to understand as well, but it's true. I'm an example of that. Yeah. I bet I don't spend an hour a week in real estate. This trip I just took me an hour and a half, so that's a month worth of my time so far. That's 2 houses I went in.
Ron, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate
pleasure,
you.
man.
I was just
My
pointing
pleasure.
at you, but thank you for your time. I appreciate your hospitality, inviting me out here. Guys, ronlegrand.com/Brian. I'm going to put that in the show notes. I'm going to put that in the description if you're watching this on YouTube. Can't thank you enough.
Man, I love having conversation with somebody that actually knows what this business is all about.
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
Thanks, Ron.
Okay, thank you.
All right, guys, we're going to see you on the next one.
See y'all.